All right, cool. So for this review session, I'm going to use an API called RecResIn. And what that is, it's a test API that was created by a group of people that they posted publicly that allows you to test your front end when you don't have an API currently available to you. They use their users with pictures, things like that. They try and give you as much stuff to test as possible, but you can see all the methods available to you to do this. They even have all of your CRUD operations. You can test authentication logins with this site. You can do a lot of pretty neat stuff with it just to make sure your front end is solid before you tie it into an actual API. So we're going to use that to do our project today, which is the RecResIn test users. I've got it actually running right now. These are actually the people that created RecResIn. And this is done just by a simple GET request. This is similar to what's going to happen when you start working on the sprint. You're going to have to, actually, this should not be working yet, but I will fix that rather quickly. Do I have this? Is this one already working? Oh, I've already got one that's already complete. Let's switch branches. We don't want to do one that's already working. Yeah, there we go. We got one that's empty. We're going to fire this up. I thought this one was blank. All right. Start. So we're going to have to install some packages and stuff. No big deal. We all like to sit there and watch NPM run, right?
Right.
So we're going to be missing a couple of things. You can see this is just a boilerplate React app. It's nothing crazy, but it will be that RecResIn API soon enough. So I got a list of packages that we're going to need. I'm just going to get them thrown in here real quick. Just add one. Let's see here. We're going to do npm I. We're going to need React router DOM. Let's see, Axios, SAS for some reason, but we'll put that in there. That looks like it. All right, we'll let these install, and then we'll start it off. So what I'm going to do is a mixture of class components and functional components with a custom hook. So you're going to be able to see those things kind of like play together with each other. And show you how they intertwine, kind of explain custom hooks, what their purposes are, what they do, how a class component works with lifecycle methods, and kind of fall in line to what the sprint is going to ask of you. So let's start by, we got this taken care of. Let's get rid of this boilerplate spinner thing. I don't like that thing. And I'm just going to add an H1 in here. We'll call this RecRes users. I'll save this, and we should see our display. RecRes user, yay! All right, so this is going to compile of a couple of things. You're going to need a form, obviously, for the sprint when we do that this weekend. And you're also going to need like a list, like a container function with probably like a card setup. So we're going to create all that right now. I'm going to create a folder called components. I'm going to create a folder called hooks. Why not? And inside of this folder for hooks, actually, we'll make that a player to be named later. But here, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this the user list.js. This is going to be a list of all of our users. And I'm going to create another file in here. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it the contact form. Because for the sprint, you're actually going to be filling out and testing a form, but the form doesn't submit anything. It just actually like creates an object at the bottom. Then you have to test to see if it's there. So we're going to simulate that as well. We're going to start with user list first. So I'm just going to create a class component. So I'm going to say, I believe it's RCC. Yep. So we got a class component. Now this might look a little different than what you've seen before, but this is just a number of ways to import something. So you can see where they destructure component out of React. You don't necessarily have to do that. Matter of fact, I normally don't because you're only declaring it one time. You're just going to use dot notation here. It does the same thing. React dot component. And it's going to return and render some stuff. So here I'm just going to put like what they call a fragment just to keep my linter from formatting it to where I don't like it. I'll put an H3 in here that's just going to say, for now, it's going to say this is the list. That way we get to see it on the screen once we get it imported in and make sure all that works. So I go to app here. We're going to import, make sure that was default. Yeah, it was default export. So we're going to import user list. That's going to be from. We're going to go into components and our user list. And I'm going to come right down below here, and I'm just going to bring that in. User list. We save this. We should see this is the list. Now we know we got to import. It's working. It's rendering. We got that part taken care of. So let's start with class components first. This is a class component. This has constructors and methods and different things that you actually did learn through your journey to Lambda to this point, but you probably forgot because it was way back in like the end of Unit 1 when you learned about prototypes and class constructors. This is exactly the same. The difference is instead of extending your cuboid parent, like one of the projects you did, that parent's actually coming from React that you're extending. Other than that, you're doing exactly the same thing. The methods work the same way. You can use bind and call the same way if you wanted to. So it's it might seem intimidating because it says React in front of it, but it's JavaScript. It's the same thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build out this class component. We're going to get that working to get some people from our API. So pull up my little cheat sheet here because I already did this once. So the first thing I'm going to do is I know I'm going to carry state in this class because I'm going to call a lifecycle method and I'm going to populate state with that information. So I'm going to go ahead and get state set up right away. I'm going to declare my constructor. My constructor doesn't take in any props, so I don't need that. This is kind of like the parent list. I'm going to call super, so I have access to this.state from the parent. And then I'm going to say this.state. It's going to equal an object. And keep in mind that state should always be an object, especially with class components. If you make it an array initially, if you have to add to that state or change that state, and it started out as an array, it can become very difficult to do. But if you started as an object and you had like your initial key, like right now we're going to create user's key, and that's going to be just an empty array. This might be the only thing we use at the time, but if we ever add like loading states to the app, or we add like products or shopping carts or different things that could possibly happen in state, because it's an object, we can just add another key and say products and put it in here and still use it real easily. So it's definitely a really good practice to always keep your state an object if you possibly can. So that's a constructor with state. You got any questions at this point?
No, I understand it so far.
Cool. All right, we're going to move on with our first lifecycle method. That's going to be the good old component did mount. And what component did mount does is it fires on the initial render of the component. So when the component mounts, so the way React works is actually renders like runs blank first, and then it comes back through and runs all the methods. And component did mount is a method that only runs that first time, and that's where it triggers like a little re-render real quick through the constructor, and then shows the stuff that came on the screen or whatever came back from that call. The other lifecycle methods that you should know about that aren't required for the sprint, fortunately, is component did update, which that works off of like previous state and like new state, and it looks for a change between the two, kind of like use effect would with something in the dependency array. And when it sees a change, it triggers a re-render with the updated information. And then there's a component will unmount, which is like a return method in use effect. It's basically a cleanup. It's going to remove any side effects, any listeners you might have, anything extra that you added to the component that will no longer be needed is going to remove them off the DOM. All right, so we need Axios. Let's go import some Axios. From Axios. All right, come back down here in our component did mount, and at this point, it's kind of like useEffect. We're going to say Axios.get. And what are we getting? We got it over here. And it's coming from that RecResin API. I'm just going to copy and paste it because I already have it. But where I got this from was right here, from the RecResin API. So it's literally the https recres.in/API/users gives you a list of users, and you can do page pagination with a query string. And if you check these other ones, like you can get a single user, user 2 the same way, and user 23, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much where I got this from, and I just had a save, so I used it. So we're going to have a happy path and a sad path. .then is our happy path. It's going to give us a response. We don't know what that response is yet, so we're going to console log it. And if you don't console log your responses, get in the habit of doing so, because you need to know what your data is before you decide to start posting it to state or putting it somewhere. It's a common mistake students make to where they'll do one project and they make like a post request, and it comes from res.data.payload. Like, okay, so they put in every request as res.data.payload, but as they start working with other APIs, payload doesn't exist. So then they get undefined errors and they're wondering why. What happened is because they didn't look at their data before they decided to use it. Same thing with like put and delete requests. When you get like the third sprint of the unit, everybody thinks like when they do a put request that they're always going to get back all of the data. That is most of the time never the case. One of the projects gives you all the data. That's it. But other than that, you normally get back just a success message or a number for how many records were changed, and that's it. You manually have to update your own state accordingly. So keep that in mind. And then catch, we're going to have an error, and we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to console log the error in case we get it. And we're going to save this, and we should be able to go back over here, inspect our page, and hopefully see something in our console. I see something that says object, and we got response.data has an array of 6 users. So our component did mount was successful. Now let's set that to state. Let's get that called and in play. So we're going to use this.setState. We have access to this.setState because we called super in our constructor. And we're going to spread out the original state just in case I don't want to change some other things in there. If I have multiple keys, I only want to update one. Which one I want to update is users. And users I'm going to set to the response.data. And to verify that that works, I'm going to come down here in between render and return. And I'm just going to console log that state. I'm going to console log this.state. I want to see if it's in my local code. We already know what this looks like, so we can get rid of that. And we're going to save this. We'll give it a refresh. And you can see my users came back as an object, but page. And what did I not set that right? Users is data. Ooh, I read that wrong, didn't I? Let's bring this back. See, I'm not even heeding my own advice. I jumped the gun a little bit myself. So let's refresh this. So response.data. .data. That's so awkward. All right, that's what it's going to be. .data. All right, that should work a little better. Yes, now users is an array. Beautiful. So there's a good example of why you always look at your data before you start using it. So now in just my state, you see the first render, the one I'm talking about before, when it makes that blank copy, it has my state, but it's an empty array. And then as it comes back through and runs the methods called, you can see it populates my state. with that array of 6 users. So now we're just going to create a component that can render those to the screen. Actually, I might not even do that. I might do it right in the list here. Yeah, we're going to make this a little funky. So in here, I'm just going to put some curly braces. I'm going to be just quick about this. It's going to be this dot state dot users dot map. Normally, I would create a separate like card component for this, but just for time and so on and so forth. And this is the only thing that we're using it for. We can do it right here, right in the return of this component. And we're going to say for each user, we're going to do something in this map method. Oh, let's see here. We're going to, I don't want to do this. Actually, you know what? I did that wrong. Let's make that an implicit return. Yeah, that looks a little better, maybe. Oh, I missed it. Oh, yeah. Just happy not having it because I don't have this. So we got a div, and then I'm going to create another div with an image. And the image source is going to be equal to some JavaScript, which should be the user.avatar. Got to use those pictures, and I'm going to give it some alt text. This is going to be the user. We'll say first name. First underscore name. And that should give us an image. So if I save this, I should just see some pictures. And I do. We're on a roll. So we have some pictures. Let's create some other things. Let's I want the name on the top. So I'm gonna create an H2 up here. And in here, I'm gonna put some JavaScript. I'm gonna say user dot first name. And I'm gonna put a space in here and another one that's gonna be user dot last name. Oh wow, that was a whole lot. User dot last name. All right, so now we see their names and stuff above them. Hey, we're on a roll. I'm gonna come down below the image div that I created, and I'm gonna create just a p tag. And what else do we have from these guys? We got email. Let's use the email. So I'm gonna come over here and say email. And in the email, we're gonna say user.email. And that should work. The only thing I have left is my React warning, which I'm going to take care of right now on this div. I'm going to say the key equals the user.id. That should give it its tracking, component tracking, and make that error clear. So we'll refresh it, make sure, yep, no errors. We can ditch this console log now. We've got everything going, and we have a successful class component making an API call with a lifecycle method. Any questions?
I'm definitely staying up. You're crushing it.
Cool. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow down. I might be able to speed up too, but I'll make more mistakes. All right. So the next thing. So that I'm going to look at the README here for what you might have in the sprint coming up. So the plant list is a lifecycle method that you're going to use that. And you're going to set it to state. We did that. All right. The shopping cart we won't worry about. The checkout form. Let's build a checkout form. All right. So to make this checkout form work, it's going to be a functional component because we're going to use a use form hook, which is just another way of a custom, one of the many popular custom hooks out there. So I'm going to say RFC. And if you wonder what that is, I have an extension in here. For some of you see that where I just type in RFC tab and it does this. It's called the ES7 Redux GraphQL extension. It's a snippet extension, and it has all those in it. It makes life really easy when you're throwing components around like this. So our contact form, let's build that up now. So contact form, we're going to, let's see, what do I want to build with this form? We're going to make, we're going to do exactly what it is. It's going to be a contact form. So I'm going to say this is going to be an initial form. I'm going to make it a const. I'm going to build just like an initial object. This is going to be everything that's going to be in this object for our contact form. It's going to have, let's say, first name. And this is just going to be just my base setting for my form. It's going to be last name. Let's see, what else do we want in here? Address we could skip. We'll go city, state, and zip. We could do email as well if we want. No, well, let's leave it here. This looks good enough. We got 5 of them in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this the way we kind of know how, and then I'm going to transition that right into a custom hook. So I know for my form to be reactful and controlled through React through the inputs, I have to carry some kind of state and monitor what happens with those inputs. So I'm going to say const form and set form. That's going to equal use state, which we do want to import in. It did not, I hate when it does that. Just invoke this way and go do it the hard way. New state. And I want to make this, my initial values is going to be my init form. So now I have that, I have basically this sitting as my starting point for my state values for the form. Now let's create some inputs. Let's say label. Label, this is going to be, and if you're wondering why I'm using labels and going the long way, labels make testing so much easier on you. You should use them. And we're going to change this even a bit further. I'm going to put like another H2 in here. And I'm going to call this the contact form. And then I got to wrap this with a form tag. Let's grab this and move it up here. Save that. And we're going to say this label, this is going to be first name. And now there's 2 ways you could do this. And I wanted to explain this to you guys in case you missed how this works or how accessibility works with labels and inputs. So I could have a label like this with a nested input, like so. And when I go to write my test for this component and I get my label text, I can get by this label text here, and it will know automatically that's the input that I want because it's that input's child. And we're actually going to, let me see here. I put a button in there for that. Let me set up some routes real quick so we can make this kind of feng shui with how it's working, because right now all we have is just this home page with RecRes users. So I'm gonna go back into app and we're gonna fix that up. First I'll go to index and we're gonna get our routing in here. Browser, router, from React router DOM. Let's go ahead and wrap our app with that. Router. That should be good. Let's go into app. Let's create some routes here. So let's import the stuff that we need first. Import, I'm going to need route. Oh, sorry. I can't type. Switch. It's going to come from React Router DOM. I'm going to come down here under my little H1 there. I'm going to create my switch statement. And I'm going to put my first route in here. And this route's going to have a path for the, I'll call this the contact form. All right, let's call contact. And in here is going to be the contact form component. And then I might have another route. Let's be an exact path equal to slash. And this is going to be my user list. And then in my user list component, I'm going to go just handle this real fast. I've been to where I want to put it at. I will put it right here. This should be all right. We're going to say button. This is going to be contact us. Make sure that shows up okay. Why do I not see that? There it is. All right, cool. And I'm going to give it an on click. Sorry if this is taking a little bit. I'm just boilerplating some stuff in here. I gotta go grab my history. Oh wait, I don't. Yeah, forgot about that. So I do have to bring in props because we gotta grab some stuff from the router the old way. So for React Router DOM, when dealing with class components, this is actually a pretty good point. I'm gonna throw another console log in here just to show you guys real quick. That you cannot use a hook in class components, right? So like what happens if you have to access the DOM history? Oh, it's this.props. So yeah, like I got to put a button here. I got to redirect with router. I got a class component. I can't use the use history hook. Well, there is a history object that comes through in props. So let's refresh this. We're not hitting that route yet, but we should be. Why am I not getting it? Oh, it's because it's a new one. I got to use it the old way. Component. Equals user. Yeah, fun with the old React Router DOM stuff. Good stuff. The slash in here. So yeah, if this looks foreign to you guys, you'll learn more about it at the end here. But this is how you get routes from a class component. And you can see the moment I saved it and did it this way, this is what I'm getting from props now. I get a history object, a location object, and a match object. So history is what allows me to get access to, if you look when I open this up, it's got a go back, a go forward. It's got the push method. It's got everything that you can get from that hook, but you have to get it through props in a class component. So now I'll go back to my user list here. I'll get rid of this console log. That way, a little bonus material for y'all. We'll put the on click on here. And that's going to be a anonymous. And we're going to say props dot this dot props dot history dot push. And we're going to push this to contact. So it still works pretty much the same way. The difference is you had to kind of hijack it through props rather than using a hook. So if I do this and I click on the contact, it brings me to contact. You can see our inputs there. All right, cool. So now that that little speed bump's out of the way, let's move on. I was talking about accessibility. So sometimes when it comes down to where you might want the label for your input somewhere else on the page or in like a different div or something, depending on how it's styling. If you do that, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to take this input and I'm going to move it outside of the label now. So now with the outside of the label, if you went to get this by label text and did it this way, even though it looks the same on there, you could see where there'd be situations where it wouldn't be. You would get an error in your test because it would not be able to find an associated input. So how you do that is you use this thing called HTML4. and you set that HTML4 equal to a string, and we'll call this first name. And what that looks for is the corresponding matching ID in your input, like so. So let's say you had a label up here for first name, and then you had like 3 checkboxes and then that input down here. If you called your test and went to get by label text first name, it would grab this input because this ties them together. Any questions on that?
No questions. So what did you have to go back to app.js to change for the React Router DOM?
I had to change it to an old style of the route component. So you can see like right here, the contact form is a nested child of route. When you do that, you can't inject props into it that way. I mean, you could probably spread them in here, like using REST and stuff. But the easiest way to do that is to use the old convention, which is just declaring the component prop equal to your component that you want to pass in. And that gives you access to like history and things like that.
So you're saying like it would be easier to go this route than doing like a spread?
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost wondering if well, we can verify it real quick. Let's go over here and call props. It might be quicker just to do it the other way. Let's find out. Oh, what did I do? Yeah, I wanted the outside of that. Let's see if we can grab it another way. We will find out, right? You see, right now props is empty. There's nobody's home because it's nested in here as a child. But I think if we do this, ... rest, it doesn't know what rest is. How would I go about this? Rest. Not resize to. Yeah, I have to find a way to pass that in. So I could say like let's say foo equals this. That's a string that says par. Yeah, and it just gives me just that one specific prop. But I wonder if I can spread in the rest that way. No, I'd have to look it up. I know there's a way to do it.
Okay, no worries. I was just wondering because you were saying that this was a quote unquote old way, but yeah, I just wanted to understand why.
Yeah, well, because of the way the class components work. See, with this new style, with the switch and the nested children for the route, this allows you to pass props directly to a component. This way, if I had to pass a prop to user list outside of what it's getting from React Router DOM, I would have to use what they call a render prop. And a render prop, you actually got to write like a render component in here and do some other weird things. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But if you don't need props for it at all, just declaring the component's the easiest way. You literally say component equal and your user list, and then you got access to everything you need. All right, let's go in here. We'll ditch this, and we're going to get our form dialed in. So rather than having to write all these IDs every time, I'm just going to remove that and nest it. But I just wanted you all to see that in case you run into it in the foreseeable future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to nest my input in my label like this. And I'm going to give this a value equal to form dot first name. Yep. And I'm not on change. Actually, we didn't make it on change yet. Let's do that real quick. Say const on change. And I'm doing it this way first, just so I can show you guys how easy it is to transition this to a custom hook. It's going to equal a function that's going to take in the event. And we're going to basically call set form. Set form is an object. We're going to spread out the original form. And then in square brackets, we're going to say e.target.name. So the target input's name is going to be the key, and then e.target.value, whatever the value of the key press is what we're going to set it to. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to say on change. That's going to equal on change. And then we're going to give it this a name. And this name is going to be first name. So there, we have that all referenced. So we can verify this. Ooh, it blew up. Why? Oh, what do you mean it's uncontrolled? What did I mistype? Value on change. What did I mess up? Should not be the case. Okay, I don't get any errors anymore. It must have been something while I was typing. Oh, I see that. I was like, what? No. I shouldn't have any errors. Come on. I want to console log the form just to be certain. And you can see everything's empty right now. I'm going to type in, I don't know, Nico. And it's working. All right, cool. So we know our logic's good. So let's create a bunch more of these. Oh. Yeah, there we go. All right, we're going to grab this. Make one for the last name, city, state, zip. So this would be last name.
You put lace name.
I'll submit that. I am the king of the typos. So I go over here, we'll change this one to last. I did it again. All right, this one's going to be city. Let's go through and get rid of all these first. This will be state. This will be the zip. All right, and then same thing here. I go this one. This is going to be city. And this one, state. This one, this will be zip. All right, so we should have all of our inputs. Yay, there they are. It looks terrible though, but we can fix that real quick. I can say, oh, I'm just gonna give this a class name real quick and fix that because it looks a little too weird. So we'll go into app CSS, add a dot form, display flex direction, column. That should make it look a little better. Oh, nope. Oh, I gotta grab the actual form tag. Display flex, same thing. Flex direction, column. Almost either. All right, how about input? And yeah, now we're styling. Margin top 20 pixels. I can live with that. That looks a little better. quick styling. All right, so now we should be able to verify everything works. I mean, here we're good. All right, so the last thing we have to do is like a submit function. So if I remember right, let me take a look at the way this thing is structured. Yeah, okay, so below the form and the div down here, we're gonna write some JavaScript and we're gonna say, oh, let's create another statement here. Say const contact, set contact. This is going to equal useState. Do it to me again. And we're going to leave that empty right now. And down here, I'm just going to write a contact. So I'm going to say if contact exists, if it's there, then we're going to render some things. And what we're going to return is all right here. I'm actually going to copy this, I think. Yeah. I'll save us a little more time. This is just the success message that we're going to be testing for. Except I didn't name anything values. That was named form. There we go. Form.address doesn't exist. Free swag, yeah, that's a cool message. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a submit function here. I'm going to say const handle submit. It's going to equal a function that's going to take in the event. It's a submit function, so we want to prevent the default. And then we're going to call set contact. We're going to set contact to the form values. I'm going to come down here on my form tag and say on submit equals the handle submit. And last but not least, at the bottom of this label inside the form tag, I'm going to create a button that says submit. And just to keep everything very specific, I'm going to give it a type equal to submit. Helps tie everything together. And that button is huge. Oh, I got to fix that too. Button with 20%. Why is that off to the right? Margin, 0, auto. Back to the middle. All right, I can live with that. So now we got a submit button down the bottom. So what should happen here is I type in a name, last name, city, somewhere, state, Alaska, and zip code 123456, and then click submit. And woohoo, look at that. We got a message down there. So this is all working. Now the kicker is we got to make this into a custom hook. And that is not going to be that difficult. We're going to do that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my hooks. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it useform.js. In here, I'm going to import useState from React. And I'm going to declare this. I'm going to say export const use form. That use keyword is very important, by the way. That identifies it to React as being a hook and following the rules of hooks. So if you declare like a custom hook that does not start with use, odds are the component won't render properly because it won't be watching the stateful logic within that form. And it will also a lot of times give you errors before that even happens, saying that, like when you declare the use state inside of it, it'll say, use state can only be declared inside of a React component. A React component returns JSX. So it'll see that it's not returning any JSX and throw a big error. Vice versa, if you name a component with the word use at the beginning of it, you will get the same type of error strategy. So just almost think of use as a reserved word with React. You only use it for hooks and you can't use it anywhere else. And you'll be much better off. So the definition of a custom hook is a JavaScript React type function that handles stateful logic in a reusable form. So it's something that you use over and over again to handle some stateful logic for one of your components or multiples. In our case, it's going to handle the stateful logic for our form inputs. That's what we're going to use it for. So the easiest way to do this, once you declare use form, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy the state that I created for my form. I already know it works. I know it's there. I'm going to drop it right in here. Init form, that's not going to be there yet. So I'm going to say init value. And this is going to be the init value. So essentially what I have going on here already in this custom hook is I'm passing in my initial state values, just like I had in this contact form right here from this object. And I'm setting them to this state within this hook, this form set form state that is copied out of there. Now there's some other things I want to put in here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to even keep this naming the same so you guys can see how simple this is. I'm going to say this is going to be use form. I'm just going to declare it as use form already and import it in. So now I'm monitoring that state and it's going to yell at me. It's going to say it's not iterable because it's not at the moment. But we're not returning anything out of this hook yet is why. So we're going to come down here and we're going to return. And in JavaScript, naming's not everything, but order is everything. So I could like call this like values, set values. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to return values and set values. Like so. And it's happy. And the reason why it's happy is because just because this order is correct, this part of the use state hook, the second part of the use state hook, when I declare it here, it's called form and set form still, but it doesn't care about the names. It just cares about the order. Form and set form. So your const and your setter are in the same order in the array as they are in this hook. So it still works. And it should technically still work, I believe. No, we're not monitoring anything yet. But yeah, so we're kind of running, no errors. Now we can add to this hook. We want to add more to it. What's the one thing that we have to put in every form that we do? We have to have an on-change method. So I'm going to grab it. And I'm going to just cut it right out of this one. It's gone. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put it right in my hook now. I want it in here. And this on-change is going to set values. The original values. And then I'm just going to pass out, instead of this set values method here, I want to pass out my on-change. So now what I'm returning out of this hook is this values, my const, and my on-change method. The setter for this state in this hook is only now controlled by this function within it, within its scope. It's not controlled by any outside source. So I'll save that. We might break, we might not. Set form is still there. So we're going to just rename this one to on-change. That'll make the rest of it happy. And it should still work. Yeah, so far so good. We haven't broken anything yet. And now we have a custom hook that we can use over and over again on our components. So let's see here, submit, ta-da, it's all still working. We can elaborate on this a little bit if we wanted to, but it's Yeah, let's do that. Why not? So I'm going to add in my use form hook, I'm going to create a clear method. I'm going to say const clear equals a function that is going to set values to the initial values. And I'm going to pass that out of my hook so I can use it wherever I call this hook as my third value. I'll call it clear. That's the name of it. All right. And now we come to contact form. And let's say in this handle submit, when we set contact to the form, when we set this contact, I want to clear my form. So let me bring in my clear method. And we'll just say reset. We'll change the name of this one too to show you how names can change. So I'm going to say reset and just invoke it. And that should be it. So now if I type in Chris Adams, we're going to go city is Tampa, Florida, zip code 13456. I'm going to submit it. I should see my message and my form clears. So now we have clear methodology in our custom hook. And we can reuse this over and over again. You can store it in the library. You can build your own private NPM package. You can do whatever you want and just bring in use form and use it over and over and over and over again and never have to write all in functions. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, cool. So we've done quite a bit here. We're actually almost done with our sprint challenge objectives, actually. We got one thing left. We got to write some tests. So we're going to test this form. We're going to make sure that all these inputs fill out, that submit button gets fired, and this little message, oh, it cleared out. Oh, okay, that's because of the object reference. I forgot about that. We're not going to use the clear form method. Let's make sure everything works before we do this. You always want to make sure it works before you start writing tests. All right, so it's all working. Cool. All right, I'm going to create a file over here in the components folder, new file, contact form. I cannot type tonight. .test.js. And that declares it as being a test. So there's some certain couple things that we're going to need to import in here. We should need React. I think that comes with everything now. But let's bring it in anyway. Let's see here. We're going to import. We're going to need the render method and the screen method. This is going to come from the testing library, React. And a lot of this will be in the sprint for you already, the imports. Some of it you might have to bring in, like this one especially. User event. This comes from a separate package from testing library, and it's at testing library user event. So just keep that in mind. It is separate. You don't get that out of the box. And then we need to bring in our actual form that we're going to test. Is that a default export? It is. All right. So no curly braces. Contact form from right next to it. Contact form. So now we have most of our imports that we're going to need. So we're going to write our first test. We're going to say test. And we're going to describe our test, what's happening here. We're going to say form header renders. We're going to see if our contact form header renders. And we'll make this a callback for the second argument for the test. And we're going to say render. Use our render method, and we're going to render the contact form. And And then we can, this is a very cool tool that I love to use. And I'm going to show you guys right now that they don't teach in class, but I think they should because it's really handy. It's called screen.debug. So it's a debug method that I get from the screen object from testing library React. And what it does is actually pretty cool. Let me I'm gonna run an npm test here. It will give you the printed DOM of the test, where it sees it. Okay, what's this one about? Oh, app test. We're not even using that anymore. Oh, stop moving around. We're gonna delete that. We don't want that. We just want to run this contact form test. And you see all this that just printed to the screen right here? Even though our test passes, I can see everything the test sees now at this exact moment in the test. This is what the test sees. It's seeing labels, it's seeing inputs, it's seeing all that. Is it seeing the header? It is. So it can. This tells me right away I can go check for this right now. So we could say const header equals screen dot get by text, and we'll get by text. We use regex, and we're going to get contact form, and then we'll get rid of that space in there, and then we're going to say expect header to be in the document. That sounds like a good one. Does it pass? And it passes. And to verify it we can fail it, we're going to add a couple M's to that. And it fails. And we can get rid of this screen debug now. So our test run is clear. Yeah, you want to erase those as you get done with them. So you just see your test fail, and then we're going to make our test pass. Test passes. Cool. There's a winner. There's our first test. We only got one more left. Next test we're going to write is we're going to fill out the contact form. First name, last name, city, state, zip. Then we're going to hit the submit button, and we're going to test to make sure our little success congratulations message shows up. So let's write another test. And this one's going to say form shows message after submit. And this one we will call back. And let's see here. We got to render. Let's render the contact form. All right. Now we got to start grabbing things. We'll say const first equals, and I'm actually going to destructure this because we're going to type it a lot. I want this equals screen. Yeah, I'm destructuring the screen object because I want the get by label text. And I'm going to use it a lot, and I don't feel like typing screen dot over and over again. So I'm just going to say get by label text. And this is going to be first name. And then we could say expect. Actually, we could type in this right now. So we're going to say user event dot type. And we're going to type into first. And we're going to type in, we'll type Nico. And then I'm going to use my screen.debug here. And the reason why I put it here is because I could see in the value of my input whether Nico is typed in or not, right in the test. Right there. See that? Value is Nico. So we know that we grabbed it and it's working. And we can, do an assertion on it there. You don't have to write an assertion for each one of these as you go through. I mean, you can. It might be over testing a little bit. It all depends on your fancy. But we're going to fill out the rest of this. We're going to say const last equals get by label text. And we're going to get by label text last name I'll make it just my name now. And then we'll use the user event. Do the .type. And we're going to type in the last. And in last, we're going to type in. And now we can run this again. Use our debugger. We'll see that both those values changed. So we can move on. Const, what do we have next? Was city. By label text. City. User event. Type. We're going to type in it to city. Tampa. We save that. We can watch it run too. And I don't want to like do this with every input just to make sure everything's working on my way down the line. Const state. Close get by. Now you can see why I destructured the get by label text out of the screen object. So I have to type screen dot state user event. Oh. Type in the state. We're going to type in Florida. And save that. We'll see that value roll. Yeah, now we just got the zip down to 1. Const zip equals get by label text. Zip user event type. And we're going to type into zip, and we're going to type in 987.654. And with that debug steady running on the bottom of this as I'm going, I can check all of my values, and I can see they're all there. So now the next thing we got to do is get that button. So let's say const button. This is going to be screen dot get by role. And the get by role is going to be button. So that should work. Yeah. You can always console log in the test to make sure you got something. Like if you're not sure. Say, I think I grabbed it, but I'm not positive. Did that work? Did get by role work? Here it is. It grabbed an HTML element. So it got a hold of something. And it's got a type of a button. So we got a winner. So now I'm going to go user event dot click. And I'm going to click on that button. And then see what screen debug says. Ooh, look, there's my message down there. All this just showed up. So that wasn't there before. So now we could write our assertions. We could say, oh, we got a little span with a roll of image. Let's get that. Say const image equals screen dot get by role. And we're going to get by role img. And we'll say expect. I'm going to try and use some expect image dot to. And oh, what happened there? To have attribute source. Does that pass? I don't know. I've never tried it that way before. This could be fun. No, it didn't. You received null. So it doesn't have that. Bummer. What does it have? You know what? We'll just expect it to be in the document. Let's see if that goes. Two. Yeah, the document's one of my favorite. See if that flies. Yeah, that one flew. And then we can grab another one too. Let's verify that. Let's verify this P tag's there. You have contacted us. So, this is going to seem kind of redundant. We'll say, and I'll show you. I'll actually chain these together. Expect get by text. That's going to be screen. Get by text. And in here we'll put some regex. You can get a little tricky with this one. So it's the only one with the word "you" in it. So I can just type in "you," and it should grab it. To have text content, and then here I can say "you have contacted us!" Exclamation point. Woo. Who? Exclamation point. Actually, that's lowercase h. And I think this will go. And it does. So if you see what I did there, I only grabbed it by "you" because just knowing this, "you" is the only one in here. That's "you." So you can kind of shorthand that rather than typing out the whole thing. And then check to see if it's got the full value that you want. And once you're done, you eliminate your screen debug. Your test runners are complete. And that's the sprint challenge objectives. Any questions?
No, you explained testing very well. The only thing I was wondering is you took off the clear form earlier. Because it was messing with stuff. So when would you add that back?
Okay, so what was happening there is because of the way this is set up, so we're referencing that object that we passed in, this initial form object, even though we're returning and making copies of it here. Right. So like form is eventually going to become the contact, right? But it's not making a copy, so it's still got a pointer towards it because of immutability in JavaScript. So when I clear it, this message shows up down here, blank.
Okay.
So you would normally be able to use that anytime, because when you're submitting form data on a normal, day-to-day basis, you're submitting it to an API call, or you're making some kind of request where that data is like leaving your application, or it might be getting updated into some sort of global state. At that point, you can clear the form. There's no harm, no foul. But because we were actually referencing the same object, it was giving me a little bit of a fit. I can fix it to where it won't do that, though.
Okay.
We could try that real quick, actually.
I just didn't know if like having the form clear was part of the sprint.
No, let's bring that in real quick. So I'm going to set contact to form, and when this clears, am I referencing form down here? No, I'm setting contact to form, and that clear method I'm going to just call. Go back to my form. Set values to initial values. Let's see if this fixes it. It might be something just this simple. We'll give it a try. I'm going to say clear. And let's see if it works. Actually, we get stop this test. We don't need that anymore. Make sure we're still running. Sure. It's still there. It's still broke. It's still mad about it. making copies of it. I might have to play with that one for a minute, but it's the immutability is basically what's happening. So I'm setting contact to this form data, right? But at the same time, I am clearing this form data to empty. So, I wonder if I do it this way. To a copy of the form data. And let's run that again. It should make a shallow copy of it, so it changes the pointer. But yeah, it's still mad about it.
Gotcha.
It's not liking it. Yeah, you're not going to need it for the sprint. It's definitely a good feature to have in your form.
Right.
But it's just the way that the project's designed. I kind of built this to mirror the sprint a little bit, and that's the way the sprint's set up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. So let me